Good afternoon. Hi, I'm Nicole Lazaro, and welcome to Follow the Right Star, Creative Leadership for Virtual Reality. So, in a sense, if you think about what do we mean by virtual reality? Well, with virtual, can I get this one? There we go. Yeah. So with virtual reality, in a certain sense, games have always been virtual. The magic circle has always been virtual. And so I want to be really clear about why this talk. Why do we need to talk about creative leadership for virtual reality? Well, it's because of this one thing. We want this, right? We want this to our virtual reality experiences rather than this or this. We really want to create engaging experiences. So virtual reality needs creative leadership. And I'm going to be pretty particular about this so we can drill down, and hopefully you'll be able to share some of our insights for having researched this field for about a year now with the new headsets. And so let's begin. Well, first of all, for those of you who have seen a talk that I've given before, okay, a few? Okay, great. Nice to see some familiar faces. So I'm Nicole Lazaro, and basically I make games more fun. I measure emotion on players' faces while they play, and I help developers, game designers, put what we call the 4 keys to fun into everything that they do. I'm a game developer and a designer on my own. I've studied the psychology of emotion. I have a cognitive science psychology degree from Stanford, and I'm a programmer and a filmmaker, design innovator, and analyst. So I take all of these things to help take our clients, which are game developers like Ubisoft and EA and Sony, to that next level of play. I've also done some other crazy stuff in my day. Back in the day when the iPhone first released, I actually designed the very first game you could play on the iPhone. Back at iPhone Dev Camp about a week after the iPhone came out, a game called Tilt. We had over 1 million downloads, and now it's a Tilt world, and we're using the game to actually plant trees on the island of Madagascar. So we've planted 16,000 trees on the island of Madagascar. As a company, we've been in business for 23 years now, and we've improved over 1 billion experiences for a variety of companies, and including organizations such as the White House. And we've done this by answering one question. So for 23 years, I've been asking the same question, which is, where's the fun, right? Where's the fun? What are we here? Why are we playing games? It's because that word, fun. Nothing else. And so we've measured fun by measuring the emotions on people's faces, like I mentioned. And we found in these years of research that people play games for 4 reasons. They play for novelty, they play for challenge, they play for friendship, and they play for meaning. And with these 4 things, like 4 buttons on a D-pad, we actually create the engaging experiences that players love the most. It's called the 4 Keys to Fun. You can find it on our website. There's a free poster and white paper, and a number of talks that I've given up on YouTube. We've had over 100,000 leading developers worldwide download the model, and it's part of a number of game curriculum. We believe that games, at XEODesign, we really believe that games can unlock human potential, that's what games do. So this is a game we have in-house called Lux. It's a game about forgiveness. And a game that I just just started working on for the Oculus Gear VR Game Challenge is a game called Follow the White Rabbit. So it's a VR game. It's set in virtual reality to test some of these theories. So you're going to see a little bit about that. And essentially with Follow the White Rabbit, it's a game that's about a magician who's been a charlatan like all his life until one day his magic actually works. The rabbit goes into the hat, but then does not come back out. And to make matters worse, it was actually wearing a priceless diamond bracelet the magician had picked from the audience. And so now you and everyone else wants to follow the white rabbit. This is a quick overview of what the experience is. It's hard to share virtual reality, so I'm just going to show the trailer. Thank you. So, thank you. So with Follow the White Rabbit, what we're doing is we believe that games, that virtual reality can create really strong emotions. And so what we're jumping into the mystery adventure genre to see what we can pull out in the mechanics and in the situation. Now, with virtual reality, how many people have developed for virtual reality so far? Okay, how many people want to develop? Okay, great. Yeah, that's awesome. Because imagine a world, this is a really cool thing, this is my experience, is that imagine a world where you, the creator, you have complete control over what the player is seeing. They literally are going inside your head. It's a very weird, very unusual thing, more than any kind of other medium I've ever worked in. You actually are putting someplace there. You're putting them directly into the realm of your imagination. And based on our research that we've done so far, is that it's the emotions that are unlocking the potential of what really good VR experiences are doing, not just the 3D art. And so VR really is at this intersection between the immersive qualities of movies and the interaction qualities of games. And what we believe is we can get it's this intersection with increasing immersion, like on the movie side, we've had the advances in the language of cinema to get from Birth of a Nation to a movie like Inception. Likewise, from Pong to a game like Journey. We are getting different techniques to advance us as a creative medium, and I think VR is going to be right in that sweet spot of being one of the most emotion-producing genres we have. Now, there is a problem, because many people assume that the language of cinema and game design tropes are going to port really, really well into virtual reality, and nothing can be further from the truth, which is then why leaders in the game industry, we really need to have very strong leadership. And the reason I decided to give this talk is that I would really like to see stronger leadership on every level of the VR industry so that we can get to those really compelling experiences, because it's really going to take strong leadership, and I'm going to show you why. The first reason why is that there are more, with this platform change, there are more physiological, psychological, game design challenges than any other console transition, platform transition in the history of games combined. Okay, we have never seen this transition before, what we're seeing, going from 2D to 3D, haven't seen it. Likewise, we don't even really know, is VR a console or is it a peripheral? We don't know what we're driving towards. How many people think that virtual reality is going to be its own game console and have a majority of the gaming market? How many people think it's going to be a peripheral, like a plastic guitar? Okay, right? So more on the plastic guitar peripheral side. Interesting, we don't know. And then the last thing is that early design locks in costs. And as managers and leaders, this is a real challenge. There's a DARPA study that said 70% of the costs of your production are locked in early design, which in virtual reality, and indeed most of games, is when you can see virtually nothing about what that final experience is going to be like. So again, a lot of leadership, design, creative leadership challenges for developing in this new medium. So to get started with what is leadership and what is management, so we can really drill down into it, I wanted to come up with some good definitions. Well, what is leadership? So I looked at Harvard Business Review. There's a gentleman named John Cotter. He's a very well-respected theorist, expert in leadership and management. And he says leadership versus management is really about two different things when you need to lead versus manage a team. To manage, you're really talking about organizing chaos. Everything about management is about organizing chaos, whereas in leadership, you're really talking about change. Now, they're two sides of the same coin. And they are really about the same thing, but they go about it in very different fashions. And so you need to have on a team, for it to succeed, both processes. And this is actually, understanding this is good, it's also another challenge that VR faces. Because, well, in a sense, to summarize, management is really top-down, whereas leadership is bottom-up. Management is about complexity and quality, all of those management practices, whereas leadership is about shifting direction, moving around. Management is also has a plan, whereas leadership is about getting people to care. And those are very different types of interactions that you have. The fortunate news is that leadership and management are really doing, according to Cotter, really do three things, the same three things. They tell a team what to do, right? Management and leadership are both about that. They organize people to do it, and then they follow up. They ensure that that work gets done. The kicker is, of course, that they have different approaches, management versus leadership. So with management, according to Cotter, is that management is about planning, budgets, defining steps, reducing, organizing chaos, organizing resources, that sort of thing. Whereas management is then you organize people, you define job roles, you communicate, you delegate and monitor, you control the problem to solve, and you monitor your plan, progress against the plan, and then you update the plan. Leadership, very different. In leadership, you set the direction, the vision, the strategies required for change. You align the people, you set up the informal communication networks. You motivate and inspire folks to move together in the same direction. We have lots of tools to manage folks. Agile, we have Jira, we have Scrum, we've got Asana, we've got lots of tools to do that electronically to help us out. And the only leadership tool we really have is you. There's an opportunity for software developers there. But yeah, to my knowledge, I have not found a real leadership tool. It is very much a people skill. And so really one of the reasons why we're here. Management is about reducing risk, whereas, so in terms of VR, management is about reducing risk, the management mindset. The leadership mindset is about innovate. Let's do something new that's never been done before. Management says, well, let's clone what already works. Whereas leadership is more about, hey, let's invent a new genre for virtual reality. And management is about, let's port the controls from stuff we already know. Whereas a leadership mindset would be, let's make them native to the platform. And again, both processes are very important for anything to succeed. If either one, and this is Cotter, from Cotter, he says if either one is too strong in that team will fail. So if they're not balanced across the lines here, the team will fail. So what does creative leadership look like, and how do you know that you have it? So the first thing is you want to see that are you able to get your team into that innovation zone, past the first generation ideas through what we at XEODesign call the design plateau, up into new creative fields and areas. How tightly aligned is your team around the creative ideas? So this is a play shop we did for the Wonder workshop for some robots. And then you're taking players. Do you take the players where they've never been? And that, I think, is leadership. That is innovation, because the experience is something you can only have in VR. And the other thing is you can see the results on players' faces. So here, for example, is a player.
That's awesome. So you just played Follow the White Rabbit. What did you think?
It's so cool. I love Alice in Wonderland, everything about it, and I love puzzles. Puzzles are my thing. Like Portal and anything that has to do with figuring stuff out and finding things and all that.
So there's clearly energy there, right? That you clearly have gotten to that person, and that's the end game. It's not what ships in the box. It's not what's on the headset. Most VR talks, they've got the picture of all the headsets and that. It's not the hardware. I want to be really clear. It is about these people, right? It's our players. That's the virtual reality experience they create in their head. So I'm going to cover a couple of, about 5 points in the remaining time of creative leadership for VR, and think about how do we direct, align, and motivate those 3 points for leadership teams around these 5 points. We've been studying virtual reality, as I've said, for about a year. We have a 36 assessment tool that we've built for evaluating VR experiences, and we're going to go through 5 of them fairly quick pace today. So for leadership strategies, the first one is audience in the lower left there, and it's probably the most important, because one part of the train wreck that is VR right now is we need to match player expectations on one hand with what current VR hardware delivers. This is the technology adoption curve many of you are familiar with, crossing the chasm from Geoffrey Moore. It came from work with Everett Rogers, diffusion of innovation. And the idea is that our early adopters are, in where we see the A here. And then there is B, the mass market. And these two groups of people have very different tastes, very different likes. Group A is willing to spend a lot of money and time and effort in order to get that new technology to work. Group B wants a mass market, toaster, low cost, kind of solution. There are more people in Group B than there are in Group A. And so if we think about traditional hardcore game genres as group A, willing to spend a lot on a console, individual titles, you know, $60 a piece. And then what these players want in a game. Unfortunately for VR, what VR delivers is much more of a mass market experience in terms of the genres that we know of right now that work. And so there's just this little, what VR does well is really a more mass market kind of thing. We have but if we deliver on Google Cardboard, you know, then we've got, you know, there's probably an opportunity, a little bit more of an opportunity there to go with your more casual thing. The other option is strategies to hit that sweet spot between something that appeals to the hardcore gamers but is accessible enough in VR so that it doesn't require a couple of things, which I will go to next, which is all about comfort. So the second thing we do in terms of assessing teams and assessing VR projects is we want to avoid triggering disgusts and phobias. So it turns out that a lot of really fun things to do in a traditional game really generate a barfatorium, you know, in virtual reality. And this is unfortunate because a lot of what you know, again, needs to get translated into the new thing. It's not that everything needs to go into the wastebasket, but certain things are really hard. Running at 40 miles an hour, no. And stairs, surprisingly. You can't do stairs in virtual reality. And I can show you a little bit about why. So this is climbing some stairs. There we go. Everybody's had this experience. You know, when the elevator goes out, the escalator goes out, and you have to walk. You know how that weird feeling, right? You get that multiplied in virtual reality. And if it gets too bad, this is what you get. This is one of our player quotes. I never want to do this again. It's way more involved, way more expensive, and it makes you feel horrible as they rip the goggles off their face. They're never coming back, right? They're never coming back. You've lost them. So why is it so important to get something that's native and feels good and fun? The other thing that surprises me, this is work that Jed Ashworth from Sony, he's a senior game designer on Morpheus. This is not a photo of him, but he talks about phobias, and it turns out that, you know, when you're simulating reality, you know, you're simulating reality. And so you may trigger, you know, a high rickety bridge over boiling lava, which might be really cool in a game. No, and if you are actually afraid of heights in VR, it's like, no, that's not a game. I'm really afraid of heights, and, you know, I want to rip the goggles off, and I'm never going to talk to you again. That's a real problem. Whether it's spiders or personal closeness, people yelling at you, you could trigger that person, and then they're just not feeling good, and that's not entertainment. That's bad. Unfortunately, I think that there's this great, Insomniac's working on this really cool game, but now we have camera and control issues that is triggering a lot of discomfort in this approach for a diagonal jumping puzzle. Not the most easiest thing to pull off well in VR. I'm looking forward to seeing how they do it. This is a lot more comfortable. Very defined frame, very clear fast action, but then where I am defines the experience around me. Likewise, the slow motion, if you've seen Showdown by Epic, the body doesn't know what is happening, what slow motion feels like, so we actually seem a very slow motion kind of game works rather well because we don't know what should be happening. Same goes sort of for Big Blue on Vive. So I'd like to talk about the controls. And we're going to provide direct, the idea here is that with controls, you have to put so much effort into buying and putting this stuff on your face. You want to be sure that the controls are really good and that they're very native to VR. It's kind of like that moment in time where a lot of people were putting, you know, invisible, transparent D-pads on mobile games on the iPhone. And you know how that was like, it just was the worst of both worlds. Because it was neither very accurate, and then you were covering what you wanted to zap anyway, right? It just was very unsatisfying. Similar sort of issues, different nouns, different verbs are going to happen in VR, are already happening in VR. This is a game called Bizarre, which is, I think, is a good example, where they use a nod gesture, right? And a no, a yes and a no, right from within the helmet, and that's telling you to dismiss a dialogue box or choose stuff. So I think that's a great way to get native controls. Fun, big topic for me. I'm going to try and restrain myself. But here you want to carefully select the types of fun that deliver on the immersive qualities of VR experience. So after you get over what we call the novelty window at XEODesign of being able to play Minecraft on your coffee table, we want to have something else that could only be done in virtual reality. You want to have a what's next. So this is HoloLens by Microsoft. Anshar Wars, I really love the game. I really want to love it even more. But after 5 minutes, it's like I've played this game somewhere else, and now it's just in 3D. So I kind of, put it down and try something else. Great game, a lot of great creative effort, but if you want something people will play for a while, you need to move things through more. More specifically for virtual reality. I thought this was good. This is Playroom from Sony. You play Godzilla and you're like you're wearing the headset that the monster is and you're knocking buildings over with your friends being the little minions. It's very native controls and very loosey-goosey. So it's very fun, kind of a cute concept. And I really want a real 3D puzzle in the Valve, Vive demo for Portal where the 3D matters. This is it isn't really a puzzle here, but where the 3D matters, and then it makes me, I'm going to be not only more immersed in the world, but I can't do that on my PC with a mouse on a flat screen. That's what's going to make these things go over the top. Now, speaking of over the top, we have that direct access to emotion, right, in our toolkit when we strap on our little magic goggles. And a lot of developers I see having some problem with this last one, with emotion. So I thought I'd bring in an expert on emotion, not me, but this gentleman. And if we think about what he was what is he the master of? What is Hitchcock the master of? Is he master of jump scares? Is he master of fear? Now, I think I already heard in the audience, he's master of suspense, which is the moment before fear. And emotion mechanics work not just by turning up to 11 every single time, right? It is blending and moving them through this emotion, what we call an emotion architecture. And so in virtual reality, it's like going from stage to cinema to television. The acting is different. If I'm on stage and I'm on a stage play, I'm going to make big gestures. Alas, poor Yorick, I knew him, Horatio. I'll do these big things. In a movie, I'm much more subtle, and then on TV, I'm even more subtle still, because I'm in a really tight close-up. So in VR, what we want to do is we want to whisper, not yell. Here I'm using RealSense to fake out the AI. It thinks I'm frowning because I'm giving it a frown gesture when I'm actually smiling. You can find out more about creating mechanics through the 4 Keys to Fun. It's a free download. 4K2 on our website, or 4K2F.com is our short link. And then I'll just close with a couple of examples. So the gallery has a mist-like kind of exploration, which I think is a really great game mechanic that's generating emotions that work really well in virtual reality. Our game, Follow the White Rabbit, we create these moments of curiosity that pull you in, and those help extend the experience. If you know the 4 keys, we do a lot to enhance the sense of, of easy fun through the microloop, the controls, creativity, exploration, all of that's happening to pull you more into the world. And pulling you into the world is a big benefit, a big value of what VR provides. You also want to have, of course, hard fun, where you're managing and you're creating. You build this world around you. You're interacting with that world, so you can really have that intense sense of presence. And then you want to have the sense of camaraderie. And I was talking over lunch about empathy, right? That this is the medium for that. You don't want to yell these things, but this is Steam Crew, one of the VR Jam winners, and they have a collaborative, sub game that you can play. In Cast AR, you got this cool face-to-face interaction because it's augmented reality, so you can look at each other. So you're getting all of the emotions on the face. There's some glasses on the way, but you're getting a lot of that face-to-face interaction, which is the feeling I want when I'm playing my 3D chess from Star Wars. And then you also have, of course, relationships, which give you more people fun, more social emotions. And then lastly, there's some serious fun, which is all about learning. So ZSpace, if you haven't seen it, it's like a Cintiq. You wear glasses, and the image comes up out of the book. So it really is this really cool magic book, and you have a stylus that you can reach into that world, and they are really targeting the education market. So I just want to close, and maybe we have a time for a question or two, which is VR really needs creative leadership, but how do we do that? And so here are just some sort of top-level things that I think about when I think about developing leadership skills. One is we need to lead by example. So both in the way that we interact with our teams and the products that we ship, using story, and creating emotion when you need to make a change. Telling it in a story, creating emotion while you're telling that story really helps other people absorb that in a leadership style. You can set lofty goals, set a moonshot. You can, provide freedom and constraints. That's a great way to guide teams towards more creative output. And then engage self-interest. So what is it personal to you? I know that there's a lot written about leadership, and I think there's a lot missing in terms of the practical how do you get specific skills. So I just put together this from some of my readings. But the most important, again, coming back to the beginning, which is, you really want to follow the right star, not just cloning the last year's hits. You really want to find something new. And to do that, the most important leadership ingredient is, of course, all of you. So thank you very much. Here are some of these tips, and you're welcome to come up with me for any questions. Oh, and I've got a panel on South by Southwest. If you want to see more games talked about at South by and delivering more emotions in movie, you can vote. I think the deadline's tomorrow. So thank you very much. Do we have time for a question? Does anyone have a question? About creativity and leadership? All right. Going, gone. Oh. Sure. Yeah, that's a great question, Kate. I love it. In a sense that, just to summarize for the recording, is that we have traditionally a highly siloed work environment in games right now. Everyone has a specialty. In VR, a lot of these teams are now doing multidisciplinary folks, very much smaller. So what does this mean in terms of, and that the art is very dependent on the interaction and storytelling, and so will we, there are small teams now, will we be able to, or will we in the future, grow into, again, another set of very specialized skills. And I think that the specialization is probably inevitable of anything that's growing. To start where we are now, having a small team allows you to innovate where you are wearing multiple roles. A small skunkworks team is going to innovate faster. Basically there's the African proverb, if you want to, travel safely, travel with a group, but if you want to travel fast, travel alone type of thing. It's like there's that thing of a really small group. And then everything that we know, not everything we know, but many things that we know are going to have to change, where there's a lot more communication required between the different disciplines. And I think that's going to change, because the game mechanic, a lot of games have a background, right? And then it might be flat in a 2D scroller, or it might be 3D in something like Call of Duty or Assassin's Creed. Beautiful backgrounds. And they are part of telling the story, but not as much. It's really the action takes place like it's a stage. I'm standing on a stage, and it's just the set and the action of the characters in front. In virtual reality, I think there's this real opportunity to, and if you have a chance to play our game, the world actually unfolds. So the world changes a lot. It starts very like a plain room, and then becomes a 3D Magritte painting, if you will, that you can look around. And those kind of interactions, I think, are going to be really, really key going forward. The most important thing is what you can do to help innovate. Yeah, and then you. Oh yeah. Sure. Yeah. So we've got, very special privileged people are allowed to experience things right now. And when you experience it, it's like, wow, this is amazing. But can it ever get mass market, or when will it get mass market? What is that? And that's a really good question. I think there's two things. One, with the crossing the chasm slide that I showed earlier, is a price point. If we are at, $500, a pop, it's really going to get hard to jump, from A to B with a 500 head-mounted display. So that's the first one. However, that does nothing if the content's not there, which is why I was so content and design heavy in this talk, is that it's the experiences that people will come for. That's the experiences, it's not the hardware. It's that, I can do this only here. The third challenge, I think, is social and being able to do it with friends in a really creative and interesting way. And I think that there is a lot more experimentation that's needed in order to have a rock band-like success if it is a peripheral, because it was a very social experience. And that's what drove repeat use. But taking yourself to other places, it is pretty amazing just as it is now. And then I think there is definitely a value in the entertainment, but it does have to get figured out, because I don't see anything yet that's out there that's really going to be like, oh, that's the thing that there's no Mist, there's no Rock Band yet on virtual reality. But we have enough teams at it, and I'm really hoping we can crack that problem. Did you have a question there? Oh, okay, great. You guys have been a wonderful audience. Thank you so much. Any other last questions? Okay, great. Well, have a great conference. Feel free to come up. I brought my game with you. If you haven't tried Oculus, you're welcome to try it. We'll probably move it to the back or something like that. And thanks so much.